Hey.
Okay. Welcome back, everybody, to the Creative Cranium. I got two great guests tonight, and I can't wait to talk to them. Please welcome Dalton, Shannon, and Wells Thompson. Welcome, guys.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, nice to be on. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure, and I look forward to chatting with you. I was telling Dalton backstage that the way I stumbled across you is through your publicist, Jeff. I love that guy. What a terrific guy. And, he has a great show over there as well. And I'm kind of looking forward to see his book, but we'll save that for another episode, okay? Because tonight we're going to talk about you guys. And then after that, we're going to talk about Mechaton, which is currently live over on Kickstarter.
It is.
Yes, so it is.
A good place to start. I'd like to learn a little bit more about you. And what we could do is we'll sort of go around. We'll start with Dalton. The first question I'd like to ask you is, and I can sense some of the influences in your project, and some of them are influences that I dig, okay? And we're going to touch base with that. But Dalton, I'd like to ask you, in your creative process, who would you say are your influences creatively?
Oh, boy. Well, I mean, there's a lot of like genres and properties that are big influences, especially on things like Mechaton, like Godzilla and Ultraman and things like that. But when it comes to like actual like creative people influencing my work, it's usually like the big two I always go to are Jack Kirby and Grant Morrison. Like those two are like
Titans.
Titans. I mean, Kirby for the bombast and like what you can do with a page, and Morrison for what you can do with a story. And those two are kind of like a beacon that I'm always trying to like get out to, but I can never actually quite get there. It's I don't know. Those two always spoke to me pretty well. And then of course like things like the Beatles and stuff. All that stuff is always a big melting pot of influences.
Man, those are two great ones. I tell you, you're definitely speaking my language. And I was going to say, and I sense some of that in your work, but we'll come around to that in the next round. Wells, how about you? Would you tell us a little bit about your creative influences?
Yeah, absolutely. Comics wise, I'd say the biggest is probably Brian Lee O'Malley. Scott Pilgrim's second, Snot Girl are all incredible, Lost at Sea. All incredible books, and I always try to capture that energy and that voice. This is Noodle, by the way. This is my cat. She decided to come say hi.
Welcome, Noodles.
Yeah, on the other side, I tend to come from a literary background, so Kurt Vonnegut and Jennifer Egan are big influences. F. Scott Fitzgerald, Ernest Hemingway are like kind of writers that made a big impact on me early on with prose. And then I get really inspired just by whatever artist I'm working with at the time. I'll go and dig through their work, and it's always like really eye-opening, the kind of stuff that they can do, and helps me to sort of gauge what's possible with the project in front of me. So, cool. So yeah, Fernando Pinto, I am always inspired by that dude's art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought I did have a chance to look through your project, and the art definitely has it's original, and I think it suits the subject material really well.
For sure. Yeah, it has like a very faint kind of manga-esque like influence on it, but it is very distinct. It reminds me of something you might see on Cartoon Network in like the early to late 2000s.
Yeah, in the best way. Way. Hey, and a quick aside, you mentioned a Hemingway fan. By any chance, are you familiar with an author by the name of Raymond Carver?
Sounds familiar, but
he's one of the guys who tried to imitate Hemingway, and he's one of my favorite writers. Whenever somebody says they're a Hemingway fan, I always recommend, if you have a chance, check out Raymond Carver. I bet
we'll do.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool to know. And my next question, and first of all, do I understand this correctly? You are both like co-writers, or is one the artist? How does that break up?
No, we
co-writer.
We're co-writers.
Okay, gotcha. Perfect. All right, excellent. I just want to make sure I didn't screw up this next question. So when you start to make a project, and there's all kinds of creative people, right? And I've been lucky to meet great writers and terrific artists and a couple of poets and a lot of musicians. We're all musicians over here. Sure. And my question for you is, and I'll start with Dalton, out of all the creative things that you could do, and I'm going to bet that there's many, and feel free to expand on that. Why comics? Why did you decide the field of comics was the move for you?
There wasn't another option. I've loved comics since I was like 8 years old, and that's all I've ever wanted to do was comics. I say all the time, there's no plan B. It's my favorite way to tell a story is with words and pictures, or sometimes just with pictures. And it's such a great medium that is it asks of you. It's interactive in a way that like a film isn't. It demands that you continue the story at your own pace rather than finish off for you or something like that. Like it's I don't know. There's something that's always captured my my adoration when it comes to comics, and nothing else has ever quite been as cool. And so whenever I tell stories, it's always with the intent that it's a comic book, and sometimes those morph into other projects. I've done like something that started off as a comic turned into like a web series in college.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, if I'm making something, there's an intention for comics, and nothing holds a candle to comics for me.
Okay, that's a great answer. And before I go to Wells, let me just ask one expansion on that.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned digital too. Do you still have any preference? Of course, we are propelled headlong into the digital age.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my fastest growing categories is the digital segment. And
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the reasons why we sometimes do digital bonuses like downloadable songs, and we do downloadable maps and things. Do you prefer the digital medium for your reader, or do you prefer a printed medium?
Oh no, I'm a floppies guy. I go in every Wednesday. I grab my books. I have closets of short boxes. I love the collected editions on my shelf. Digital is a fascinating avenue for comics because it especially with things like the webtoons format. There's so many possibilities for the medium of comics to really take advantage of that I find fascinating. And I think when you make your stuff for digital, it can do things nothing else can even match. But if it's like your standard like page layout, I kind of want that on a page rather than having to like zoom in or guided view on a digital reader. It's also a good space saver, but I'm a printed page kind of guy.
Well, you're speaking my language. And did I ascertain from that you're a comic collector too?
Oh yeah, it's a sickness.
Yeah, I'm one too. But we'll come back around to that in the next round. Let's go to Wells. Okay, Wells, for you, same thing, right? Lots of creative people in our fields. For you, why did you decide that comics was your calling?
Well, I decided a long time ago that I wanted to be a writer. And I went headlong into that. My other option was music. I was a saxophone player, guitar player,
nice.
briefly a singer. But I'm a much worse songwriter than I am like prose and short stories and scripts.
Hold on a second. I want to ask what you mean by that, because just a quick comment.
I'm bad at poetry is what I mean by that.
Well, hey, poetry, there's not really a way to do it wrong.
If you read Wells's, there is,
rude.
Now I kind of want to see some.
Oh God, it's not worth it. Let me tell you. But I've always wanted to be a writer, and I did a lot of prose writing, and I try to continue to do it. I'm not as prolific as I was in prose specifically. But what I found about comics is that it's the one that worked for me, for lack of a better term. So like, I love screenwriting. I love all kinds of writing. But if you're making a movie, you need a huge amount of money. You need a big crew and a whole bunch of people to rely on to pull it off. Every film is a small miracle. Like the fact that they happen at all is insane, let alone that some of them are good. So that was always very prohibitive. And then on the other side, you have like novels and books, which the audience for that is a lot smaller than comics and movies and TV. And the process is very solitary. It's very lonely, and I like the collaboration. So getting to both collaborate with people, It's still, it still takes money, but it's a lot cheaper than trying to make a film. And the fact that there is a reader base out there for it, it all just kind of came together for me. And I love molding my stories to comics. They aren't always born comics, but most of the time I find I can mold them to the medium and they turn out better for it.
Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah.
And you said something that's kind of interesting to me, and we'll just take a second and focus on that, which is, I've been lucky that I've got to meet some of these great creators, and it's real nice to meet you both tonight. One of the things I've noticed is that, and I'm definitely what you would call a frustrated musician. Okay. Back in, I was a professional musician for 9 years, and I'm proud to say never really had that moment of success where I said, hey, this is going to work. I'm a musician. It was always kind of, to be honest, struggling and just barely making it. And by the way, my hats are off to all musicians. I get it that it's super hard.
Oh God, it's
harder now than ever. People say things like, well, you can get on YouTube and you can, my songwriting partner, we write songs for our Kickstarter campaigns. He has something like 80,000 followers, and it's not even a couple $100 a month he makes from it.
Yeah, it's
like a ridiculously low amount. And my point with this is, first, I think we should do all we can to support the arts, including and maybe especially music, maybe. And I want to ask you, Wells, why do you think it is? Let me think how to ask this. Why is there this curious link between musicians and comic makers?
I don't know. That's I think it's just the sort of loud expressiveness of both mediums. So a lot of storytelling in songwriting is inherently sort of melodramatic. You're going to very raw emotions and to very big statements and loud, and you're getting loud when you want to make your point. And in comics, you kind of do that, but visually. You have loud lettering sections and your big facial expressions for when you're trying to get your point across. So I think it's just the sort of weight that you can put behind it. It's also, especially if you're looking at like the floppy format, and this is all purely speculation. This could all be wrong. This is just what comes immediately to my mind. But
you're onto something. I think you're onto something.
Think about like a monthly issue, doing it episodically like that. It does sort of carry on the structure of a song where you sort of bring in your verse and your new points, but you have your familiar elements that always come back, and it's like, well, this is what the story is about, and how it sort of mutates along as you go issue to issue. So there's something there. I don't know. If I was to make up an answer on the spot that sounds right, that would be,
I think your answer is, I think that's solid. And it's because I can say that without exaggeration. I bet you. And when I say I've interviewed all these people, it's not like Jeff, who's got, 500 or whatever he has now. But I mean, I've gone through probably 25 or 26 in the last couple of weeks. And I bet you easily more than half of them are musicians. And it's probably close to 3/4. And it keeps coming up. And that's why I thought your answer was very solid. And there does seem to be an element of, I sometimes say at the end of the day, we're page makers, right? And what I mean by that, there's the elements of, you said, the verse and the chorus, and that last panel is the cymbal crashing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's some truth in that. Well, that's a great answer. Let's move on to our next question, and I'll go back to Dalton here. The first thing, you said you were a comic collector. Would you mind if I asked you what types of, because full disclosure, some of the guys out there know I'm a diehard comic collector. I've been one for many years, ever since I was a little kid. And I am very interested to hear what you're collecting, not only modern, if it's that, but also some older stuff too. Can you give us a couple of, for instances, of what's in your collection?
Yeah, a good bulk of my collection is like bread and butter, like meat and potato superhero books. Like I'm a big Green Lantern Justice League fan, so I go in, I grab those Silver Age issues. I'm a huge, like, Superman is my favorite fictional character, so any old Action Comics Superman books.
Nice.
The amount of times that he will just hand me a comic and be like, "Look at how cool this is,"
and it's
like,
so dumb, but it's
it's
so
like
great.
Superman eating like thousands of burgers. And saying,
I love those.
If I don't stop eating, I'll die.
It's great. I love those. And Doom Patrol. I love Doom Patrol.
Oh.
So like the super. I love I love weird comics, but I especially love weird old comics. So like those Silver Age Doom Patrols are just the perfect. Oh, it's perfect. And then of course the Grant Morrison Doom Patrols are just expand on that even more. But...
Brother, my all-time favorite. I'm telling you, no lies. It would be fair to say that our new title that we're working on, and like I say, this is about you guys tonight, but we did sit down and frame it so that it was like the Grant Morrison Doom Patrol run, by which I mean, like, weird endings and everyone is not quite who you think they are. And it's like deep and sort of layered. Would you say that, and actually, we'll go around one more to Wells and we'll keep going in a circle. First of all, Wells, are you a collector too?
Not in the way that Dalton is. I have like 6 or 7 bookshelves full of books and comics and such, but most of them are trades and the majority of those are books, are just like regular prose books, novels and such.
What do you got that you're reading?
Absolutely.
What do you got that you're reading right now that you would recommend to us?
I'm reading For Goodness Sake by Kaylin Smith, who's an insanely talented indie writer and artist. She has a really phenomenal kind of cartoonish style. It's extremely expressive. And it's about a man who is cursed to have red skin and demon horns and basically be immortal as long as people think bad things about him. And he teams up with a hippie to try and break the curse and learn how to be a good person.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. It has a lot of personality to it. She came out with the Omnibus a little while ago, and I supported her Kickstarter back when it was up. So I got a big, beautiful hardbound of that. Let's see. I just read Carmilla. That one was really good. Miss Kaylin Smith is like the sweetest person on the planet. And super professional, by the way. She did one of our variant covers for Frankenstein #2. I met her at Planet Comic-Con, and we had the conversation about it, and like 2 weeks later she had the cover ready. And it was still months down the line that we needed it. So cool. I can't recommend. Just one of the best people in the industry.
I'll check that out. I like to take recommendations from.
Absolutely. And she has a bunch of series. For Goodness Sake is good. Plume is good. I think House of Lothar is her Patreon comic that she's doing right now. Let's see. Yeah, I read the Camilla comic recently. That was really good. About the first vampire myth brought to modern day. And a bunch of other stuff. It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth by Zoe Thorogood, which reading that back to back with Snock Girl was really interesting because it's in essence the same kind of self-loathing character, just done in wildly different ways.
Okay.
And yeah, I've ever since I've moved to Chicago and I can read on the train, I've been reading so much. So
nice. Slightly off topic. How do you like Chicago?
I love it. I really like it's my favorite place that I've lived so far.
I was fortunate to be invited to C2E2 a couple of times, and that was Chicago kind of gets a bad rap because
it does.
If you read the news, and I'm not an expert on Chicago, so don't hear Tim's acting like an expert on Chicago. But the thing that struck me when I was in Chicago, because I've been to New York and Baltimore a number of times, you go walk down the street in Chicago, the shopkeepers come out in the morning and sweep the streets in front of the people take pride in their. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it still has that kind of Midwest, folksy feel to it. It's just, if you get 11 million people in the same place, some tensions are going to happen, things are going to happen.
Right. Yeah. I guess
in the same way that if you, I think the most crime filled city in the United States is like per capita St. Louis. It's just big cities tends to have these things happen more often because there are more people to have them happen to.
My experience in Chicago was pretty good.
I've never had I've had some weird experiences in Chicago. I've never had a bad experience in Chicago.
I can tell you the one time I was coming out of the, well, actually we were walking down to the, what is that, the Javits Center? Or is that I might have that wrong. Where do they have the C2E2? The convention
where
center?
Do they have it? I haven't been yet. I'm going this year for the first time.
But it was maybe 2 blocks, and we're coming out, and he says, "Hey, well, listen, I better call you a cab." And I said, "Well, we can walk. Our legs aren't broken." She says, "You've never been to Chicago in February, have you?" And I said, "No, we haven't." We walked outside, man, and it was like
it's -3 degrees
right, like
with
the
wind
frozen
chill down
tundra,
to -20. You're like, okay, I can see.
Yeah, so it's a hardy folk from Chicago.
For sure.
So let's come around, and what I'd like to do next is I'd like to learn a little bit about you guys' writing process. Dalton, I'll start with you. When you're writing, and first of all, I assume you start with a blank piece of paper. I looked at your material. It's very original, right? There's not necessarily well, I guess let's ask 2 questions. The first thing is, how do you start your script? And the second thing is, do you frame it after any other types of projects, which I sometimes do? But Dalton, you tell us first about your writing process.
I don't know that I frame it particularly. I mean, the script template I used is framed from other script templates I found. But in terms of story, I don't know. I've never really framed story unless it's like a very direct homage. Then I've never really framed a story with a particular aesthetic. But when I start writing, and this kind of drives Wells insane, I write. Like I'll make a broad outline. I'll be like, okay, here's issue 1 to 15. I know what happens in issue 1, 2, 3, 4. I know what's going on, but I don't have it scene by scene or dialogue by dialogue, and I'll just start writing. I'm like, okay, I know what I want to happen. And then by the time I get half through the script, I know it's not going to happen anymore, and I have to pivot. And then I pivot midstream, and I just keep going. And I'll figure out issue 2 later. It's fine. And then I'll write the whole series like that. And then by the end, it's this
very like stop and
no, but it's very like pure in that sense, where I'm just going. It's just straight from the fountain onto the page, and I get a lot of the best stuff there. And then Wells is able to come in and like chisel it away and be like, okay, here's what works, here's what doesn't, here's how we can make it cohesive. And
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
so
I want to ask Wells this question too, and also expand on what he said. So first, Wells, what's your writing process like? And the second part is, like, he started to tell us, can you shed some light on who's doing which portion?
So it depends on the project, but most of the time we have one person like start and do the first script for the book.
Take point.
So yeah, Mechaton is a story where I'm taking point.
Okay.
And I generally write the first script and then pass it to Dalton. Dalton reads it and goes, I like this, I don't like this. And this is his prerogative. This is not necessarily what I do, but he'll generally just rewrite the entire thing. with sort of what he does, and then I take my version and his version and sort of smush them together, and get the voices to line up and sound like it's all coming from the same person. And generally that sort of, by the time we get there, we've kind of figured out the story and get it to a place that we like, and it's just fine dialogue tweaks from there. But yeah, no, Dalton can sometimes get a little banter heavy, and it will be in like the introductory scene 12 pages into a 20-page comic, and I'm like, Dalton, you see why we can't do this, right?
Right.
It's very charming, but yeah, sometimes you have to take a weed whacker to it. Whereas the way I write tends to be extremely bashing head against the wall, painful. Not always. There are some projects that just I breeze through and it's right the first time. And those are always a joy. But the reality is most of the time it's like I get through 3 or 4 pages in about 2 hours, and I'm like, okay, I need a break for the rest of the day, and then I'll come back tomorrow. And I just kind of hack away at it until it's done. And by the time it's done, at least I think it's usually in a good spot, and it's either like it's done or something fundamentally has to change in order to get where we need to go. But yeah, I tend to be a lot better kind of actualizing it from like, here's where we start, here's where we need to end. Let's get there in a reasonable amount of time.
And by the way, that's critically important. And I often wish I had, I wish I had somebody like that, to be honest. And, you know, in my case, I work with a lot of artists. It's something like 11 artists now. But I've never been able to attract other writers to my outfit over here. And I guess that's something I should maybe throw that out. I'd love to work with another writer. And I have worked with a couple of editors. And, you know, that is a little bit of a different animal, right? But
editors are critically important. Absolutely.
Yeah. And by the way, I kind of wish I had that too. The times when I did that it was somebody else's project. I've only done 2 or 3 times where I wrote for somebody else. Each time was very positive. I'm not in some way.
I'll throw my hat in the ring. I would love to write for someone. I would love to write for an artist that just wants to draw something cool and wants to, you know, make a fun story, doesn't know exactly what to do with it, but has a cool image. I would love to make just a script based off of that, where it's like, oh, it's not my idea, it's not my, it's not my baby. Let's do it.
Listen, let's stay in touch with each other, all three.
Absolutely,
because that's I can tell you, I'm not blowing smoke. I need other writers, and I kind of feel like one of the ways to strengthen your own skills is to have, like, based on what Dalton said. What I don't have is somebody that says, no, Tim, no, that you're 11 pages in, because, you know, like all writers, hey, what I'm making is gold, right? You need somebody to tell you, hey, buddy, you know, you're getting off the track.
For sure. So ego is extremely important, because none of us would be here without it. But ego is also something you have to learn when to set aside and go, okay, no, the story would be better if we did this thing that I didn't think of or wasn't responsible for.
Well, yeah, and you know, that's a great way to put it. And I just have a quick cap I'll put on your comment, which is about a year ago, I had written a script for a company here. Well, it's Bad Bug Media. Do you know those guys, Mike Tiener and them? They're mostly known for what they call erotic comics, which is fine. That isn't what I do. But they were writing I sort of got known as the cryptid guy somehow, based on the title, which is fine. There's worse things, right? But I wrote a 24-page draft, they call it. And when it went into the editing process, I'm not kidding, they changed essentially every element of what I had written. And I remember I came away from it going, oh gosh, I really didn't like what I did there very much. I was kind of maybe feeling insecure. But anyway, they released the book here this year. They got my name on the cover. And it was like, oh, wow. So, man, I guess for writers out there, don't be afraid to jump in the water if somebody says, we want to hear your concept. And I think your guys writing this co-writing scheme that you have, it sounds like a very effective way.
Yeah, and it definitely helps. We've been, you know, we met in college. We've been friends for a while. We trust
Where was college? Where's college for you guys?
University of Central Arkansas.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So, and so what led you to Chicago, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, it's a long road, but essentially my wife got a job up here, and I wanted to move out of the South, so life happily happens, right? Followed her up. Yes. Dalton,
how about you? Where's home for you? If it's okay, I ask. You don't have to answer.
No, Arkansas is home, but right now, my wife and I are living up in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Go Packers!
Packers!
Go Pack! Go! We just again just wanting to go see and do something different that wasn't the South, and it's been a lot of fun.
Well, I have one more, and like I say, you know, I'm really interested in getting into you guys' heads. That's kind of what we try to do here.
Yeah.
I have one more writing question for you, and then after that, we're going to talk about Mechaton a little bit.
Absolutely.
My next question would be, when you're writing, what's a good way to ask this one? Like we talked about your process, and everybody's process is a little different. Mechaton is an ongoing series, correct?
Yes.
And it's on number 5 right now?
Number 4 and 5 are currently being funded. So
number 4 and 5. And is that the end of the arc, or how many issues is the
first arc? Yeah, it's the end of the first arc.
Okay, so this is the end right now. So viewers, if you're looking to check this out, this would be the perfect time to get in on Mechaton. So my question then is this, and this is something that I struggle with as a writer. When you first go in to say, hey, we're making this new concept, it's called Mechaton, it's going to be amazing. Do you sit down and say, okay, it's going to be 5 issues, and then plot one out? Do you start with the first issue? Do you start with the last? Where do you start? Dalton, if you could answer first.
So for me, I usually have an arbitrary number of issues in mind. Like some series feel like a 5-issue miniseries. Some feel like a 15-issue series. Some feel like a 30-issue ongoing whatever. Some of them feel like 200-issue epics, whatever. But I usually find in the either the planning stage or the actual writing of the script that either there's too much or too little here, and you have to just kind of edit as like I pivot a lot when I write. So yeah, I usually have something in mind for it. Like Mechaton, in its earliest conception, I think was probably 6 issues, which was not nearly enough. There was way too much going on to fit into 6 issues, and now it's been expanded into 15 as of right now. So it could change tomorrow if we felt we needed it. But so yeah, things change, but I generally have an idea, and we have we know where issue 1 starts, and we know where issue 15 ends, and we have some pivotal moments in between that we want to get to. But but a lot of the time, it's like, let's see where it takes us.
Okay, perfect. And so, Wells, how about you in your writing process? Do you, if you could expand on his answer a little bit?
Yeah, for me, it just has more to do with like how much I need to say with the characters and do with them. So we have projects that are that felt immediately like this is a graphic novel, and we have sort of a formula for that now. 7 issues, the last issue is a double 28 pages per issue, and that equals graphic novel length. And some stuff feels or some stuff I force to be shorter or longer if I need it. I have a thing I've been writing that probably deserves to be a graphic novel if we're being honest, but I really wanted to do 100-page 5-issue miniseries, so I forced it to be that. And so you can sort of forcibly, that will help you determine what the core of the story is, if nothing else, so that you can get to that as quickly as possible. For Mechaton, that original idea was 5-issue miniseries, and for all of the ideas that all the really big plot points I think that we're hitting were kind of present in that in different forms, and we've certainly improved on them quite a bit. But even then, I was just like, okay, like we have this we have this sibling dynamic that has no time to breathe before it goes absolutely bonkers. We should really get to know these people before we, send one to space or whatever.
Yeah. I got a quick question about something you said. I don't want to interrupt you. So you mentioned, how do I want to ask this? You mentioned about the characters.
Yeah.
Would you say when you start your scripting, is it plot focused or character focused?
Almost always it's character focused for me personally.
Yeah.
Very occasionally I will do something that I'm like, I know what the plot is and I don't know who any of these people are yet. But that's the rarity. That's the oddball. Most of the time it's I only ever want to write something if I know who the characters are, and we'll figure out the plot stuff later. What actually goes down, because so much in my opinion of the best plot points are organic, based on who they are and what choices they make.
I would agree with you. And, one thing I feel that's one of the skills that I'm weaker at. I think that, what's a good way to put it? A strong character development can overcome a weak plot. But I don't think a strong plot can't really overcome a weak character development. Because I think people sort of embrace their characters. And you could even make a pretty good argument that if the character's strong, the story almost writes itself, right? You make strong characters and let them go. And interesting.
Absolutely, I would agree with that. Obvious, and with comics, I often feel pigeonholed to be like, it's comics. You have to throw some kind of action on there. But very often that's, people make fun of, talking heads and things that don't, when things don't really happen in an issue. But a lot of times that stuff is really, if it's well written, if it's, if we're getting a lot of good stuff out of the characters, that can be really compelling to just see two people bounce back and forth and make different facial expressions at each other and have an argument. That can be
and maybe
super compelling.
snappy dialogue, right?
Yeah, and that
really...
all that definitely helps. You need all of those components to make that happen if you're not going to have any big action set pieces. But Mechaton is, however, a comic that for the most part is always going to have at least one big action set piece per issue. But I think the characters are strong enough that even if we took, an issue off, so to speak, had a beach episode, I think it would be just as strong.
Okay, cool. And that reminds me of something that what you just said. And I was reading, it was an interview with, I forget who the writer was, but he was talking about J.R.R. Tolkien. And in A Lord of the Rings, he was talking about the Fellowship of the Ring. And there's a sequence in there, which is the Council of the Ring. And they're trying to figure out what to do with the ring. And there's 11 pages where nothing happens. And he said, if this was ever being rewritten today, they wouldn't be able to publish it because people might not sit through 11 pages. And his point was that the characters and the dialogue made it interesting because, they all, in my words, they all talk kind of funny and they all have different motivations. And,
well, there's also there's a big important problem to solve, and you have a bunch of people trying to solve it from their very different and narrow perspectives. So I don't think that nothing is happening in that scene. I think it's there's no literal action happening. Gimli does take an axe to the ring. And
right. Yeah, exactly.
Other than that, there's not a lot of literal action happening, but there's a lot of intrigue and there's a lot of plot movements despite that. So it kind of depends on how you define plot and how you define, action in that regard as well. It would be a lot harder to do that in a comic, to do, 11 pages of just people going around a circle, pointing and talking at each other. And occasionally you cut to the ring and it's doing something ominous and evil. But
you've never read a Brian Michael Bendis Avengers comic, have
you? Yeah, those have the best reputation, though.
Shots fired. Hey, so first off, thanks for giving us a glimpse into your creative process and to letting us know who you are. For a couple of minutes, let's talk about Mechaton.
Please.
So I'll start with Dalton. Tell us a little bit about the characters in Mechaton.
Mechaton is about two siblings, Derek and Leah. Derek is a bit of a layabout, loves video games, has a really good heart, wants to really help his community, and not so much leads a committee kind of way, but look out for your neighbor kind of way. And Leah is more of a his artistic sister, who isn't so much into the games, is more into herself than her community, but not to a doucher kind of way. She just thinks very highly of herself, and they stumble upon this glove that turns anything it punches into a giant robot, and collectively these two idiots have to figure out how to navigate this new power, along with new kaiju showing up, local governments getting involved, terrible bosses, and then you have this lightning rod of reason in Leah's partner Hex, who is this non-binary Cambodian witch who loves Leah with all their heart.
This already sounds like Grant Morrison right there.
But also, Hex can't stand what is going on. They just want it to be over so they can go back and read their books. But their partner's older brother is sticking his gloved hand into the business and turning their house into a giant mech. So now they're involved and they have to keep everyone kind of grounded. It's a great cast of characters.
It sounds like a terrific cast and
we haven't even met them all yet.
Oh yeah. You know, I will say that from a reader's perspective, I feel that the comics medium is irresponsibly short on giant robots. So thank you for doing your part.
Right? Right? Thank you. Yeah. I've been saying this for years.
Yep. That's what I sometimes say about our books is now with 10% more giant robots.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for sharing the characters with us. Now, Wells, do you think that, let me think of a good question here. So we learned a little bit about the characters. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the target audience for Mechaton? Or phrased another way, if they like this, they will like Mechaton.
So I think the target audience is there's sort of a cross section. There's people like me and Dalton, so like younger millennials, probably guys who grew up on stuff like Dragon Ball Z, Toonami, Cartoon Network, et cetera, et cetera. There's definitely a contingent of people who like appreciate diverse characters, queer characters in their storytelling, and just wants like a good representation. There's people who like stuff like modern indie comics, so your Scott Pilgrims, your Murder Falcons, your By the Horns, your Witchblood. If you like any of that stuff, you like absolutely you'll love Mechaton. And then there's the people who are nostalgic for Transformers and GoBots and your 80s cartoons, and that love old video games like Legend of Zelda, Streets of Rage, et cetera, et cetera. Sure, like there's tons of little demographics that I think add up to the larger audience. But kids will love it. If I had to like narrow it down, it would be kids of all ages.
I forgot to ask that. Is it an all ages title?
So technically, it's like it's being published in Scout all ages YA through Scoot. It's all ages in that sense that like an adult could read it and a kid could read it and they would both equally enjoy it. It's not like aimed specifically at kids, but if you're 50 years old and a kid at heart, you'll love this book. And if you've got a 10-year-old, he'll love it too. And
did I detect that are you both gamers also?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
I think we're
not near as much as I want to, but
I think we're both playing Metroid Prime Remake right now.
Yeah, I already finished it.
I figured you would have.
All right, not to get too far off the track, but quick question. What's the greatest video game of all time?
Hurt me.
Okay. Are you asking what's the greatest or my favorite?
Let's go with your favorite.
My favorite? I've got a soft spot for Chrono Trigger.
Nice.
I love me some Chrono Trigger.
Me too, man. Me too. Yeah. Great pick. Wells, how about you?
For nostalgia, it's Ocarina of Time / Majora's Mask.
Yeah, sure, man. Yeah.
For my own personal like impact on my life, it's Dark Souls. And for the most beautiful story ever told in a video game, it's The Outer Wilds.
Is that the one that is Outer Wilds?
It's an adventure game about an alien that joins the space program and explores the universe, and 22 minutes after the game starts, the sun explodes, and then you wake up at the beginning of the game again. It is a time loop game. But
I don't think I know this one.
It is incredibly impressive. It's basically a giant puzzle, and the solution itself is really creative, but also the resolution of that solution of the story and of the game brought me to tears and legitimately like moved me in a very Grant Morrison-esque way, I'll say.
Wow. Listen,
it feels like a conclusion that he would come to, or that they would come to.
I'll check that out, man, based on your recommendation, especially because of the other ones you said.
It's a pretty quick one too. It's if you really sink your time into it, dedicated, it's like,
what's it on?
Is that 6 hours? I played it on PS4, but I know it's on PC, and I would imagine it's on Xbox. I don't know if it's on Switch or not, but whatever you do, I'm sure you can find it.
Yeah. I'm a huge gamer too. So, I'm glad you said that, because I'm always fond of mentioning that, generally speaking, if somebody is a gamer and likes those kind of things, they would probably like your title, Mechaton, which is over on Kickstarter right now. So I definitely want to recommend to our viewers to check that out. I would say that, I had a chance to look through it, and I detect a lot of cool elements. Like I was telling Pops backstage, first off, how do you go wrong with kaiju, giant robots? Mm-hmm. Also, it's got a little bit of I hope this comes out in the complimentary way. It's got a little bit of a Scott Pilgrim kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's really intentional. that's the vibe.
Yeah, and again, and that kind of loops back around to music fans, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you're kind of on the fence and you're not sure if you would like something like this, man, if you like Scott Pilgrim, you like music, you like video games, Mechaton is worth checking out. And I guess so. This is 4 and 5 is this closes out this arc.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
So I want to ask Dalton, where does this go next?
Oh man.
We'll tell you when we figure that out.
Yeah, bigger and bigger, honestly.
Yeah.
We started with a mech made out of a hot dog cart. We finished the first arc with the biggest mech we've seen yet, and it only gets bigger and crazier from there.
Yeah.
We introduce our fourth main character of the book. We start to see some cracks start to form in the relationships. And we start to see some the origins of the glove start to come into play, and its quote unquote true owner showing their face. So it's there's a lot of the doors get blown wide open at the end of the first arc for the world to really expand, and it just gets. If you're wondering how big the mechs can get, they can only get bigger.
I think the mechs get bigger, but the story at the heart of it gets almost smaller in a sense. So much of this first arc is centered around Derek and Leah's relationship, and that doesn't change in the second arc. It becomes even more pivotal to what's going on. And while things do get crazier, we always have that core of characters that we can go back to. So yeah, I'm really excited for issue 2. There's a lot of stuff that we still have to like work through and create and form, but what we know is going to happen, the big beats are looking to be really, really incredible.
Okay, that sounds awesome, man. And so issues 4 and 5 are available on Kickstarter right now. And I've been putting the links in the comments as we're talking, so please feel free to check that out. I have a quick publishing question for you. So you mentioned this is also going to be with Scoot, which is the YA arm of Scout, correct?
Yes,
correct. And now I guess, so correct me if I got this wrong, or maybe even flesh it out. So issues 1 through 3 are, how does that?
Oh, so like how it goes out through Scoot?
Yes,
so they're going to publish issue number 1, which will be in stores on March 29th.
Oh, nice. So this is perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And then they're not publishing 2, 3, 4, 5. They're just going issue 1 and then the trade. And then 1 through 5.
Perfect.
So yeah, that way, if you're a floppy hunter, that's where the Kickstarters are for. That's where you get all the floppies. And then if you're just looking for the trade, first of all, still please support the Kickstarter, because we need everyone to make the book happen. But eventually, yeah, that will be out in stores for all of you.
And how did you get lined up with Scout?
It honestly, Mechaton felt like it needed to be there. Like from our perspective, I love Scout's lineup. I think they have a really creative and fun catalog. Even then, back when we submitted it, and yeah, we didn't submit it anywhere else. We just thought, if I would like to see it on the shelves, and I would like this publisher to do it. And they agreed. They thought it was great. So,
well, congratulations. That's definitely one of the better publishers, and they have a terrific reputation in the marketplace, which that's saying quite a bit, as you know. Not all publishers are equal.
Yeah, there's definitely some stuff coming out.
I'll leave that at that one. And so we're almost to our time, but I have a couple more questions. Dalton, I'll bounce back to you. After, let's say that you go through Mechaton, the first 2 arcs, is there another project on the horizon, a dream project? What is the next great thing we can expect from you? Oh boy.
So the spring, we're launching our most ambitious Kickstarter yet. It's Wells mentioned
ever.
It. Probably, well, until the next one. Like Wells mentioned it earlier. It's our first graphic novel, Depths, about a man who gets stuck at the bottom of the ocean for 3 years in a perpetual breathing unit, and his struggle with finding his way home, depression, all sorts of, and there's an octopus named Douglas in it too, so it's fun. But no, it's the first project that Wells and I actually collaborated on together in terms of comics. And it's the one that's been on the back burner the longest, the one that we've always believed in. It's also our most literary work, I would say. so far.
What do you mean by
And,
that? Tell us a little bit. What do you mean by that?
So Megaton and our other series, Frankenstein the Unconquered, lean heavy into genre fiction. I love genre fiction. It's my favorite way to tell a story because I like the bombast. I like the tropes. I like that stuff. Depths is much more from like Wells's background of like it's just about people. There's an extraordinary circumstance where he's trapped at the bottom of the ocean, but it's about his struggle to get home. It's not about the fights. It's not about the bombast. It's about the characters and their struggle to find each other again. And it was a story that meant a lot to me when I wrote it, and I think it's meant a lot to Wells. So since he came on, and it spawned a lot of other stories that we want to tell within that world that Wells really jumped at as well. And so yeah, in this spring we're going to be launching the Kickstarter for the first volume, which it's 4 issues, and
first half of
it.
There's a really great breaking point in between the two of them.
Sounds cool.
But yeah, it's going to be a really big book, like 224 pages in total. So this first one is 112 pages.
What type of art style are we talking for that one?
More leaning on realistic, but heavily like a lot of ink on the page, super murky, claustrophobic coloring. Yeah, it looks really impressive. I'm super excited and we have some great cover artists on it too. Jay Sheik is doing the main art. He's doing the main cover. We have Sergio Cunha doing the B cover. He did a short story kind of set in that with those characters in our first book, Descent to Dread, so we wanted to pay homage to him. And then Heather Vaughn is doing the third cover, and it's like very trippy and psychological looking.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds terrific. We'll look forward to that too.
For sure.
So how many days left do we have on the Mechaton Kickstarter?
We have 20 days. It ends on March 22nd, I believe. 22nd or 23rd. But yeah, I can't stress enough. It's we need everyone to get on board and support it if it's going to make it. For whatever reason, psychologically, people see a big number, they want to hop on. So the earlier people hop on to support us, the more people will want to come support us, and it all kind of snowballs. So yeah, if you're thinking about it, please go do that now. I would appreciate it a lot. That is the link. Absolutely.
Please check it out, viewers. Yeah, it looks like a terrific project. And I will say, yeah, you're welcome, man. I really enjoyed meeting you both. And it's always a pleasure to meet other writers. And, you know, everybody's process is so different, right? I will ask you one final publishing question. And again, feel free to expand on this because everybody can learn from each other, right? It's when you choose your, have you ever used any crowdfunding platforms other than Kickstarter?
No.
Yeah, I haven't either. Would you consider it, or you're pretty much married to Kickstarter?
I would.
The audience is all there.
I was gonna say I would consider it, but it would take a lot of convincing. Just because, from what I've seen, as you know, as much as I would love a competitor to Kickstarter, as much as I would love a true and honest to God like competitor, for the most part, just like the audience seems to be there, and I've seen books that would make 10, 20K on Kickstarter, no problem, struggle to meet, you know, their bare minimum goals on other sites. So it would take a lot to convince me to go to a crowdfunder or to a Zoop, as much as I love and have supported projects on both of those platforms.
Oh, you have?
Oh, absolutely. I have. Yeah,
I haven't done that yet. And of course, you know, once you get known as a Kickstarter person, they start to market you like crazy. Like I get tons of emails from them, but I'm not sure if, and this is one man's opinion, everybody, your mileage may vary. I'm not sure, like I don't have 1 million followers or anything, but I got some, and I'm not sure if they'd want to move over to the other.
Yeah, that's the other thing is we have a hotline directly to all of our backers through Kickstarter. So saying, "Hey, we have a new thing, and it's on this different website that you have to make another account for." And da 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 da.
That's why everyone's still on Twitter despite it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you guys do on Twitter? You do okay over there?
We're doing fine, but we've noticed a downtick in engagement for sure. People are
I never did too well over on Twitter. I don't know why, but I'm not really. I don't think I'm controversial enough. I'm kind of bored.
Yeah, it's that almighty engagement.
Yeah,
for sure. We're definitely we're open. I guess social media is the place where we're actually open to a new home. Whereas, I wouldn't at the moment seriously consider doing anything other than a Kickstarter without significant convincing. But if you show me that somewhere else is better, then there's a good chance I'll jump ship from Twitter.
Yeah. Okay, well, I tell you what, we know we got our viewers and we want them to follow Mechaton. It is over on Kickstarter right now. Please take a look at it. We've got some great creators here, super interesting guys. Dalton, first, can you tell us a little bit about where we can find you on social media or any other place you'd like to plug?
Yeah, you can find me on basically any social media that matters at Dalton K. Shannon, right down there. I am not the biggest social media guy, but I guess Twitter's probably where I've made the most posts. Go figure. And then, of course, the Kickstarter for Megaton 4 and 5. That's running right now, and I need to do this. I haven't done it yet. Wells has. In Wells's bio on his Twitter, we have a newsletter that you can sign up for. And you get all the updates of Mechaton, upcoming projects that aren't Mechaton, and also you get some insight into what we're reading and cocktail recipes and cat pictures. It's a whole it's a big smorgasbord. Hits your inbox once a month, and it's the best way to keep up with what we're doing because God knows if you ever see any Twitter post I ever make.
And Wells, how about you? Where can we find you?
Yeah, I'm most active on Twitter at WellsThomp. Where you'll find the most insights and specific looks into what we're doing is the newsletter, Comics, Cats, and Cocktails, which is available to sign up through my Twitter. And also, if you pledge the Kickstarter at the end of it, when I send out my survey, hey, do you want to join? Will be one of the questions. Or do you want to sign up for that newsletter? And then, all of our comics are available through Kickstarter. Some of them are also available through, Ko-Fi. Ko-Fi. We've got some up there as well, but all of them will always be available through all of the Kickstarters. So you can find all the issues of Mechaton, all the issues of Frankenstein the Unconquered, Descent into Dread, our anthology, the anthologies that I've been in, By Visibility 1 and 2, as well as From the Static, are all add-ons on the Kickstarter.
Sounds awesome. Well, fellas, this was a great interview. In closing, I'd just like to say thanks for giving us a glimpse into your creative process. And I really enjoyed learning about what you do and how you do it. And I hope our viewers, if they're on the fence, go right now and check out Mechaton on Kickstarter. Sounds like a terrific project, and I wish you every success with it. Guys, thank you for coming on the show.
It's been great to be on.
Yes.
Yeah. You're definitely welcome every time. I tell you, we do this every Thursday night. I'm new at the live thing, but I wish, you guys are interesting. You did a terrific job. It was a pleasure.
Well, I appreciate it. You've been great
too.
To
be on.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Good night.